Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of the WAIMM Distinguished webinar series. You agree with me that every new project, or big project for that matter, needs to be properly compartmentalized or set into departments, and then set into a free flow of process design, so everybody understands and moves or syncs along with the project at every point in time. The objectives, the vision, mission should be properly set out and well articulated for anyone to understand. Definitely, you need to be advertising each or communicating to each member of the team at every point the next process, so that all will sing in the same direction or sail along the same tune. There's no way you can have a project without conforming to international standards. That's why there's every need to standardize such processes so that it's fit for purpose and then it comes to a proper end. Once the process is effective, it needs to be sustained. Today, we're going to talk about the 5S concept and its practice in the industry. And with me to do that is Roger Appiah, who is the CEO of OPIM Consulting and Services, which is an operations improvement consultancy. Roger has been involved in port line operations for several decades, but he spent about 20 years at Baco, at aluminium smelter. He actually comes with a background in chemical engineering. Until recently, he was at Bahrain and the UAE on high-risk big projects as technology and operations advisor. He's now down at the OPIM Consulting. Without wasting much time, I will go on back to Roger to just get us moving. But before then, I want to probably set a few ground rules. In case you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A session. And after his presentation, we'll just get back to answering the questions for you. As always, you sit back, relax, and then we believe at the end of the day, you have a lot of knowledge acquired. Roger, in case you're ready, I will probably want you to Hello, Roger.
Hello.
Yes, you can take it away.
Okay. Hi, President. Hello.
We can hear you, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, am I online?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon to everyone. And thank you for having me this afternoon. It's a great pleasure and an opportunity for me to have the moment with you to share some experience and some knowledge, and also to use the opportunity also to learn some fresh new ideas, since it's all about new ideas and how to get things working. 5S is all about generating ideas. So it's going to be a discussion and not necessarily a lecture from me, because I believe some of you out there are more deeply involved in this than some of us. Nevertheless, I think it is the experience and the knowledge that we have gathered over the years that we need to come together so that we can share them. For those of us who are new to this concept, I believe that it's a great opportunity for us also to learn. And at the end of the day, I think the issue has to do with the fact that the system we are going to look at, it's a dynamic system. It's something that doesn't have any specific, the basic concept and the principles are the same. However, when you go into practice, a lot of different other issues goes into it. Allow me to begin the presentation by making a quotation to quote something that I used to mention prior to any of my encounter with the people that I deal with in regard to this concept. I said a 5S is a value adding as it modifies behaviors, beliefs, and habits of the individuals. Okay.
We can follow the presentation, please.
Like I was saying, there is always something to take away with you when you do 5S as an individual. So I try to re-emphasize on that. And that is exactly what I was trying to say. What I'm saying is that 5S is a value adding as it modifies behaviors, beliefs, and the habits of the individuals who participate in it, such that no matter where she or she finds himself, it becomes obvious that she or she differently do things differently. He makes you unique and very special. You stand out anywhere you go. So that is the value adding issue that I'm talking about. When you have that in mind, it presupposes that when you go through this system, you become a completely different person, positively. On that note, I will begin with the presentation itself. The 5S is a lean manufacturing methodology, as we all know. And we will take a quick look at the outline of the presentation. We will try to give a brief background because I don't want to waste that much time on the history. We'll do a little history, and then we'll look at some of the challenges that normally are typical on the work floor or work area. And then we will try to look at ways of resolving these challenges. Then we also look at the 5S as a concept, as a work system of choice, because there are quite a number of work systems. So the question would be, why 5S? So we then look at the fundamentals, the basic tenets of the 5S system. And as a part of our introduction, we will look at the concept as it is in all its elements and the principles. Then we'll look at what we'll refer to as the 5S conceptual framework. The 5S itself looks like a superstructure, but there is a way of understanding the 5S within that context. It makes the whole idea very clear to all of us. Then we'll look at some aspect of the 5S visual management. You see, 5S is all about visual management because everything that we do has to be made visible. Whether messages, whether code, whatever it is, it has to be made visible. And I will tell you a bit of interesting experience that I had. Where I have worked with previously, the environment was very interesting. We had contractors who were coming from all over places in the Middle East. And incidentally, most of them cannot speak English. And those of us who work with them, we only could speak English. But I must tell you, it was so amazing how they were effectively working within the system. The reason being that they could picture things with their own eyes and can figure things out easily without even explaining anything to them. That is the beauty of the system. And we can look at how do we implement the 5S? What are the issues, what are the processes that we need to look at in trying to implement a 5S project? Then we can end it up with a very short summary. There's a brief summary of what we have discussed throughout the presentation. So now we enter into the background. I say here the Japanese use a word, jamba. A jamba is a Japanese word that is normally used to refer to workplace organization. That ensures that the right tools are kept at the right places and in an organized setup for effective work without any clutter. When clutter basically will mean issues of overburden, issues on evenness, wastages, and all those things constitute a complete mess on the work area. That is how the Japanese wanted always to address those issues. But basically, you could see that the 5S principle, it is actually embedded in the Japanese culture because they have a belief that a clean workplace is the pathway to having a clean and organized mind. They also believe that there should be a place for everything and everything should have its own place. Now, just to quote a very popular Japanese businessman and manufacturer, he is Shichiro Honda. Shichiro Honda made this quotation, very interesting. He said, the reason why I tell you Honda employees, he's speaking to his own people because he's the founder of Honda Motor. He said, the reason why I tell you Honda employees to keep our factory clean is not to look good from the outside. So he's saying that it's not about the aesthetics, but it's about a mindset which neglects a dirty and unorganized factory will never generate excellent product. So his focus was actually on the mindset and then in terms of the output, the products that comes out of it, the workplace. Our factory is where we all live. Those who have no mindset to organize this place will never be able to build excellent products. Our mindset is directly reflected in our products, unquote. So we see where and the issue of mindset is coming into this whole concept. We will deal with more of these as we go along. Essentially, the abbreviation 5S was generalized and adopted in the manufacturing sector in Japan during the early 1980s. It was very popular. And so they tried to shorten the 5S, which are the issue, the element steps involved, and put it as 5S. The Toyota production systems, which is normally referred to as TPS, became very famous in the sector during those because it deploys the principles in the 5S for its manufacturing processes. Nevertheless, there are others who realize that the 5S itself, the principles was good enough because the results it was giving was amazing. So the service industry in Japan started to use it in the early 1990s. Now we'll look at some of the common workplace problems and challenges. Now, when you look at the screen in front of us, you could see a gentleman standing in the middle. He's having numerous questions coming to his mind. At one point, he's saying that, why am I getting too tired looking for a tool to do my job? It's not easy to locate just common basic tools on the floor. Another guy is looking for a document and he's saying that where are the documents? He cannot locate where they are because it is not easy to access those documents, which are critical for the work he is going to do. Another gentleman is saying that, what am I supposed to do next? Because I'm lost. I don't know what to do next. I've finished with this. What is it next for me to do? I don't seem to have it. Another guy is asking himself that, look, I made a mistake yesterday, today also I made a mistake. Why am I keep on making the same mistakes, just doing the same job. There's a reason for that. We'll look at it. And he said, another team is saying that we cannot speak one common language. Every body to be thinking differently and talking differently. We cannot bring our minds together to do this job. There's so much differences. How do we resolve these challenges? Okay, so we will tend, of course, at this point, we want to find a solution. So like I just explained in the previous slide, this slide is same guy going to do this same problem. So this is a common and a typical workplace challenges that arises because there is no system of work. There is no system of work. And that is the very reason why you have these fundamental challenges. Now we try to find solution. Of course, when we have a problem, we need to find a solution to them. And that is what the question is. We may have several solutions or several tools or several systems. So which one do you choose? Which is the most appropriate for us? Remember, we are dealing with a workplace, and a workplace is a specific. Because there are several tools, but we are now dealing with a workplace. So the workplace, specifically, like I told you, 5S is organization of the workplace. So it has to do with something on the workplace. So that is where our focus is in trying to select the appropriate tool. Is looking at the issue that we noticed there, saying that teamwork is not there. So there should be a tool that could improve the teamwork and bring the synergy in the team. Now, the second point is that there should be a positive way of thinking, can believe thinking, that we can do things. And therefore, if you want to have a positive thinking, then it means there should be an attitudinal change, opening yourself up for new ideas and prepare to learn new things. You need a system that will do that, let you do thinking. Then try to improve on your analytical thinking and your thought processes, looking for options to make things better. And of course, there should be a defined work standard or benchmarks that you can measure yourself against, that you can make referrals to in order to be able to do the thing in a manner that is consistent with the laid down agreed procedures. Then of course, when you do this, definitely you create a new work culture is created. And that new work culture will always strive to not to stay static, but to continue to improve because you need to do things differently every time. So which tool is most appropriate for us? That's the question we are asking ourselves. The tool that can give us these things that I've mentioned, we are looking for that tool. Now we turn and we look at this 5S concept. We are saying 5S concept becomes a work system of choice. Why? Now you look at the reason. The first that we have on our list here in front of us is it gives you a high impact and minimal cost of implementation. Of course, people don't want to spend that much on capacity. So you are looking for a concept that can maximize, give you the best results, but doesn't cost you that much. Everybody wants that. So the 5S does that kind of thing. It doesn't call for too much expenditure. It calls for certain re-engineering and certain rearranging and reorientation and certain systematic way of doing things. The second point is that the results are very tangible and conspicuously visible to everyone. You don't need to look around you. You just stand there and look around you. The results are right in front of you. The third point is that a significant improved team discipline because people would like to do things together because they need to work together to get a kind of results. And they are when they work together and get the results, they begin to believe in themselves and in the team and the way they do things. Then the workplace, the fourth point is the workplace is visually well organized and visually very clean. You just walk into the place and it's like, you don't seem to know what is going on here. There is a secret behind it and you need to find out. I will say a joke about the previous company that I worked, my last company, we used to have a lot of visitors visiting the plant because we were in the process of selling technologies. And one person entered a place and asked one of the employees, is it a pot line or is it a hospital? And it was obvious. He couldn't see any smoke. He couldn't see, everything seemed to be in its place. Or the floor is neat, shiny, and you don't see anything, no noise. So he was wondering whether he was in the right place. He was in the right place, right? Then you have the employees are well motivated and have the pride, a sense of pride. When they see the organized and clean environment, they cherish it and they want to get hold of it. The next point is the workplace becomes safer, and then the workflow is seamless. There is no delays, there is no interruptions, everything flows. And there are less issues on the floor like safety problems and other things are very minimal. The next point is that the system by nature itself is very dynamic in character. It cannot be static. It's always looking for opportunities to try to do things differently, because the very thing that you think is okay today, tomorrow it may not look that okay. And some ideas will have to come how to make it better than what it used to be. So it strives and drives on ideas, generation of ideas. Of course, when people step into your place with a 5S system working there and they step out of the place, they carry with them certain impression. The impression is that this place looks good. And that is what I'm saying, referring to as enhances corporate image. There are places that I worked before years back, and people will tell you, where do you work? I work at this company. Oh, this company is a number one, very clean place, very organized place. You heard some of them, some of you have heard this about your workplaces before. And the last point I want to show is that there is no any world-class industry or organization that does not deploy some aspect of 5S. So looking at these reasons I've given out here, one will be tempted to say, why don't you deploy this system? Because at first it's not going to cost me that much. See what it's doing to me, it's going to transform my workplace, right? So that explains why most organizations want to opt for 5S to start with. Now, what are the fundamentals of 5S system? Essentially, there are 5 principles that serve as a fulcrum around which a solid and sound working environment is created. One is the system has the capability of identifying and reducing abnormalities or waste. In the Japanese language, the first one they refer to as muri. Muri basically is talking about overburden, unreasonableness, illogicalities on the workflow area, things that overburdens the area, things that doesn't make sense, things that seem to be suggest that something is wrong and something has to be corrected. Muri is a Japanese word that is used to describe these conditions. And then there's a mura. The mura is talking about unevenness, inconsistencies, things being done differently. This one does a different job, but you go and look at one job, the standard is different from another job. It tells you that there's something not right here. And then there is a lack of workflow because of delays, interruptions. It creates a kind of disjoint workflow. Then the muda. The muda basically is talking about wastes in general. There are enormous of waste on the work area that need to be addressed. And some of these are non-value adding activities. At the end of the day, you don't want to get too much waste in the waste area because it is not cost effective for you to have waste. The MUDA addresses 7 fundamental waste that I've mentioned here in the picture: overproduction, inventory, waiting, motion, transportation, rework, and over processing. As we go along, some of these should come out. So basically, you end up having a positive attitude being cultivated. It improves teamwork, It improves safety, it improves cleanliness, and it improves productivity and efficiencies. This is what I just talked about here. I just gave you a little bit of a general picture, a snapshot of what you stand to gain when you employ the 5S, what it does for you. Now, of course, everybody is waiting for what is 5S concept? What is this concept? The first point you know is that 5S is a philosophy. It is a philosophy means it is an attitude. That is a way of organizing and managing and sustaining the workplace or the workspace and the workflow with the ultimate intent to improve efficiency by eliminating waste, improving flow, and reducing process excessiveness, resulting in an unsafe work, to create a safer work environment, Like I mentioned from the beginning, 5S is a lean manufacturing tool, which is characterized by a structured thinking process, a behavior, very important, and a consistent way of doing things. The 5S, as a matter of fact, becomes like a culture, as I mentioned from the beginning regarding the Japanese culture. It should be a culture, a way of life. It must be taught in the first place, and it has to be practiced not once, but repeatedly. And I will explain why I'm using these keywords, practice repeatedly, because they will tell you practice makes man perfect. I think everybody knows about that. When you repeat something, it becomes a habit and it becomes a way of life. The 5S system, normally in the Japanese system, they like ownership. This is owned by a work team or a group who will demonstrate the principles as a way of life, with everybody who is under the system who will have to confine himself or submit himself to these principles, each one of them. So the question is, what is the 5S? We have explained the concept. Now, what does the 5X individually stand for? And that is the reason why they have put this 5 stuff together and call it 5S. Now, the 5S is actually an acronym for 5 Japanese terms used to describe the fundamental steps of this system, of the 5S system of visual management. I have mentioned visual management. Please take note of that, because everything we're going to do is going to be visual display, visual controls, and a lot of things are visual. Messages are all so much of pictures, so much of visual messages and everything. So that keyword visual management, I want us to highlight on that. These are deployed in order to be able to achieve the objective of the concept. The first one is referred to as, in Japanese language, as siari, which basically means in English, literally sorting. Then we have seiton, which is certain order. And we have sieso, which is shine. And when we say shine, please don't get it too wrong. We'll know exactly what shine is. Then we have the siekichu, which is the standardized. And then we have the shizuki, which is sustain. Now, if you can see there, I have the Japanese word and I have the English word. Keep it in mind as we go. Now we have seen some Japanese and we know their meaning. So let's go ahead. We will try to avoid as much Japanese language, because most of us are not too good in pronouncing the words. And my apologies if I have not mentioned the words, the Japanese words correctly. Over here on the right side of the poster, you see some 5S posters, typical posters. There are so many different posters for different organizations and different industries, depending on where they are coming from and depending on where their emphasis are. So if you go elsewhere, you'll see a different one. I just captured these two for purposes of illustration. We'll mention in that order, the first S is the sorting. Sorting is the process of separating essential items from the non-essential items with the goal of eliminating those items not needed for work, but keep the workplace clustered. I hope I did mention from the beginning, from the screen with the pictures about the challenges. You will notice that now it is being addressed by fibrous. Then the second point is that before you do that, all equipments, materials, tools, and items in the workplace are listed, categorized, and then arranged in this order, because we are going to do sorting. So therefore, we need to separate them. We have the essential referring to these tools are essential for the daily work, for our work activities, and it should be around. And non-essential but workable, there are certain tools that are not necessarily needed, but yet it is in good condition, it's workable. What do you do to them? You don't throw them away, of course, you keep them in a place, because for all you know, what is not essential may become essential in the course of time. Then we should be able to have the ability to go back and retrieve them and bring them back. So these are kept in the area referred to as the red tag area. Then we have non-essential but faulty. Of course, if it is non-essential in the first place, and it is also faulty in addition, then of course, it is not worth keeping it in the work area and creating unnecessary space issues and also safety issues. So you take it and keep it in a scrap yard with the intent of getting rid of them. We'll look at all items that are needed for regular and routine use are kept in the immediate work area, and alternative storage provided outside for items that are used less routinely. So in effect, what we are saying is that there are tools that are essential, but then you don't use them too frequently enough. Do you keep them all, the one used weekly and monthly? Do you put them all on the same place? No, because the idea is that you want to free the workspace, make it free and safer, and therefore you can shift some of them to other places, and when you need them, it shouldn't be far away. It should be able to be accessed quickly and brought back. And that is where so we'll look at this in detail when we go to the next slide. Of course, the procedure that involves identifying non-essential items, I wrote about the non-essential items are going for some storage, a form of storage, which is called tagging. Now, when you go to target, there should be a way of segregating them, trying to store them and keeping record on them, right? So non-essential but workable items are removed from the work area. Red tag, that means you apply the red tag, a tag that you see up here on my cursor. It's used with certain information on it. You fill those information and you keep it stored up in the area called the red tag storage area, because like I told you, you may need it. And if you don't need it, there is subsequent action to be taken. We will look at that as we go along. The non-essential and faulty items are removed from the work area and transferred to the scrapyard for disposal, like I mentioned, because you don't have use at all for them, because it is neither essential and then it's faulty in addition. So this is a snapshot of what I just talked about. Now, what you see here on the table is that there should be a criteria. You see, you cannot sort without certain criteria. That is why I mentioned that if you take something to the scrappy red tag area, what are we supposed to do? So there should be a form of a criteria, a sorting criteria to help you to segregate them properly, even in storage. If you look at it, you'll realize that there are certain companies and certain jurisdictions, the timing, how long an item should be stored and how long the item should be disposed of are all different. Where I came from, 3 months is the maximum for an item, which is non-essential. And in red tag, 3 months, every month there is a review to find out whether it is still needed to keep it in that storage area, because it's also occupying space. Mind you, we don't want to occupy too many spaces, unnecessary times. So even at the red tag area, we're still looking how we can free the space around there. Otherwise, over a period, the whole place will become also messed up. When you look at the table, you'll see there is a high, there is an average, there's a low. Of course, the high is the one we just talked about essential items. The high refer to items that are used once a week, items that are used on daily basis, and items that are used on hourly basis. That is the routine activities. Of course, they are on a higher level. It needs to be stored in the work area, or in some cases, that piece of equipment or a tool is carried on the human person as he works. Then the ones which are average that I mentioned to you, it was specifying the period, certain period of time. Here you're talking about average, you have items used once within the last 2 to 6 months. These numbers I'm quoting here will vary from one place to another. Certain organizations, all these numbers will change. So this is just for illustration purposes. And these items are stored in central area in the rectangle area. And then the low is the one that we are referring to. The low, the level 1 is that you don't have any use and there's no need for it and you need to scrap it. So it goes for disposal, right? And that explains how to deal with the materials in the red tag area. Now, when you look at a typical red tag flow diagram, it makes the picture very clear of all what I just talked about. You try to sort out, you look at the item, is it needed? Is it necessary? Is it needed? And is it necessary? If you say yes, you keep it. If you say no, you ask yourself, is it in good condition? It says yes. Okay, if it is yes, then it has to go to certain temporary storage. The temporary storage is what we are referring to as the red tag area, because maybe today I may not need it, maybe tomorrow I may need it. Then it goes through that storage process and arrangement. And even there, I told you it is not static. We keep on going there and visiting the area, monthly basis, maybe weekly basis, it depends. And each time you ask yourself, is it worth keeping them here? And then at the end of the day, if you review it, if the item is still there after X number of months, you need to define a cutoff point. At that point, the item has to go. So you ask yourself, after this period, is it still here? No, it cannot be here anymore. You get rid of it. And when you have a big organization, maybe you don't need to throw it away. When I say dispose here, it means you are taking it out of your work area, the general work area. It could be of certain use elsewhere, and that is another issue. But in as much as your defined boundaries of work area is concerned, it is out. You take it out. Now let's look at some of the benefits of sorting as a first step in the 5X arrangement. First of all, you have lesser items in the work area now, because if you look at this picture, you could see a whole bunch of tools sitting on there. Do you need this much of tools? You ask yourself a question. Now, after sorting, you see where you are now? Yes, after sorting, you see that about 3/4 of the tools there are all gone. And you see how the place is looking. It tells you that a lot has changed. So there's less disorder to interfere with the production work and the workflow. And this improves productivity in general. Now it simplifies the task. If I'm coming here to pick a tool, you can just imagine some of them may be good, some of them may be bad. I need to try to figure out which one is good for me. You are spending so much time trying to look, but here you walk through this place, all of you just can pick them, it's visible, you pick it and you are gone. So it means it saves you so much time and make it easy for you to do your job. Effective utilization of space and resources. Of course, now you see the difference now. It is clear to you that your floor area is now freer. And when you do all this exercise, you save yourself a lot of costs at the end of the day. And then, of course, when the area is very free of all kinds of mess and all kinds of cluster, the workflow becomes very safe and therefore improves safety in general and reduces accidents. The second element or the second principle in the 5S is set in order. Set in order, as the word implies, set something in order. All the essential items needed in the area are organized and arranged, the keyword, systematically, such that these are the key points. We have talked about systematically, but the most important point is that it should be easy to find. And then it should also be easy to retrieve it, because maybe you find it, taking it out is a challenge. It should be easy to retrieve for use and also to be able to return to the same storage area. Now, the sorting should make things also obvious when it is not supposed to be there. So when something is not well placed, you can see it very obvious visibly so that you can do the correction where necessary. It also defines quantity of each specific tool or item to be stored in certain specified locations. So if you go and it is more than the specified quantity, it means something is not right and has to be corrected. It also defines things like the height. You are stacking some material, how much height do you have to go? How much size do you have to go? It will specify these things so that you don't need to go beyond that. It will also tell you how much is the minimum that should be there, because if it's less also, it is not good. And if it's in excess also, it is not good. So you give yourself a range of certain number of inventory on each item that should be in the work area. And when you are doing the sorting and arranging, when I use the word systematically, it means that it should be arranged in such a way that the tool that you need to work with in an area should not be far removed from where you are located with your work. So the position or the location of the tool should be arranged in consonance with the flow of work so that there is seamlessness in the workflow. So set in order practice generally involves marking out and designating floor areas, outlining the work area and locations, installing certain shelves and cabinets where the tools will be kept for them to be able to access them easily, labeling, color coding, which is becoming a language now. Color coding is a language. That is a common language that everybody should understand. The numbering will help you to be able to locate where it is sitting. And then the zoning area is trying to, when you have a very large area, you need to do a zonal mapping so that you'll be able to know exactly where it is. You can sit in your office and tell that this place is this zone number 5. You can tell it's here because it is clearly defined. So in doing all these activities, I'm saying that everything will be in its right place. And a place for everything and everything in its right place. That is what you see in front of you in the picture up there. Down there, it tells you that the involvement of the people, the people who are doing their job. For remember, I told you from the beginning that the ownership of the system is the employees. They are more familiar with the work area. They understand the challenges. They understand the problems more than me and you. So you always have to build consensus. The team have to come together and look at it. The management are actually the custodians. They always just want to make sure whatever decisions are taken regarding by the team is consistent with the 5S, the tenets of the 5S process. Now, if you look at this picture in front of us, you have to set the boundaries. You have to mark certain areas and specify the quantity, what item should be there, and how many of them should be there, or how many should not be there. So if you look at the the pictures here, you saw this picture earlier on. If you look at the floor area, there is nothing, no marking to define the boundary. So anywhere goes. But if you look at here, there's some painting activity going here to define the area, because immediately under this rack, there is all kinds of mess that is there. The question is that nobody will own ownership for the mess there. But as soon as you put the marking there and you assign responsibility, they know this place will come for checking and it will be done, it will be taken care of. So this labeling and marking are critical. We will explain further. If you look at these pictures here, you could see for yourself, it's self-explanatory. As soon as you walk to a place like this, it's supposed to be this. But if it is this, you haven't marked it, that I can take the green and put it here, and I can take the yellow and put it here. It's the same place, no big deal. But it is a big deal when you start marking out this way. You have to label it as a paint number 010, and here is a thinner 200. You cannot put a yellow, which is a paint, in a location of a thinner. That is not a system. So the system is specific with location and with the label, right? So that is how it is. Now, there are some benefits and gains that you get out of this arrangement. If you look at it, it makes it easier and able to pick something for use and able to return. It increases job efficiency. Of course, you don't waste too much time. You get things done very quickly, and that improves your efficiency. There is no delays or holdups because you don't go waiting for anything. It is sitting right beside you where you are working. If you have to move, you move only a couple of steps, you have it, and job is done. Therefore, there is no need for movement. You know, you don't reduce motion waste. Motion waste means that somebody has to sit and wait for somebody to be moved from another point to another place. No, you don't have to do that. If you need an item, it should be close by, and it has to be able to access, and the job is done, and we avoid all this movement, unnecessary moving around, which is a waste of time. And you can see these pictures depicting how certain arrangements have been once again modified, and now you see things that you could see there's orderliness and easy for you to go to a place and pick an item. You could see here labelings and markings have been done, and every place has been assigned for a certain item. So you walk to this place and you are looking for an item or a piece of tool or equipment, you don't need to bother too much. You just walk and it's there, you pick it. Here you can see it also. Everything is in order. Everything, a place for everything and everything in its place. These are some few examples. If you look here, these two wheelbarrows are sitting somewhere in front of this panel. This is a panel that is electrical panel that is being accessed as a HMI, is a human machine interface. People visit here a lot. Can you just imagine the obstruction this tool is keeping here? Sometimes it gets very hot also for use, and it's not good for it to be here because you have not defined any place, anything goes. But when you define a place for it with labels indicating that this is the place for wheelbarrow, it is sitting there. And that is what the standard is. You could see it before. People would throw this item here anywhere. And in this item you see here is such that somebody may need it for work and he has to travel a whole distance to come and pick it. But now you have here, a station has been defined with labels specifying how much of this tool should be there, which is saying 1, and it's saying that this guy, how much should be 1, it is there. And then station has been numbered for zonal purposes. So if you want something, an auditor comes and check, he knows that when he went to station number 4A, something was missing or everything was okay. The third of the principle is shine. I had warned earlier that the name connotes something, but of course, there is more to it. It is not only sweeping. It is more about, it's a regimented scheduled cleaning of the entire work area. Can you imagine that? Your question asked me, if you have a very huge area, how can I do it? It is too much. Yes, it's possible. It is possible with a fibrous. And I will explain in due course. A second point is that to get rid of all the dust and dirt on regular basis, the key word is regular basis. right? For all that we know, most of the activities that we do in terms of scheduled work and non-scheduled work, it doesn't end without area being well housekept. The housekeeping should be total, and that completes the job. I believe in every work direction, that is the order. For safety reasons, it has to be done. And then the third point here is that it identifies and eliminates sources of contamination, because when you find a source of contamination, it is not only the cleaning of the mess, but you need to be able to identify the source and fix it so that it doesn't happen the second time. There should be a systemized cleaning as a form of inspection. That is why I want that it is not only cleaning, but it is also inspecting. If you go to any place and you want to clean the place, as you clean, you inspect, because for all that you know, an equipment may be defective or may be damaged. Are you going to keep it there? No. So it's saying that retrieve and replace defective and damaged items. So the shining involves both the cleaning and also inspection. Develop an action plan to keep the area clean. Yes, what is action plan? Action plans could be in form of what you see here. You see the schedule is there, and then it is giving you the areas, specified areas, and asking you what you should specifically do. It is giving the area, it's giving the team that is supposed to do it, and which areas and at which time of the shift. So it is clearly defined. That is why I'm saying that when you put in this schedule here, it addresses the issue itself. No matter how big the area is, I mentioned to you 1.7 kilometers and then 1 kilometer wide, a pot line, huge place. But with this simple schedule you see here, job is always done. The area always look clean and beautiful. So it tells you, yes, it can be done. Now it said develop and follow regular cleaning and maintenance schedule. You see, the follow-up is critical. You can develop the beautiful schedule, but if the regular follow-up is not there, it's a waste. So the follow-up mechanism is critical in this exercise. What are some of the benefits of SHINE? The benefits of SHINE. First, of course, when you clean, it helps you to make things that are not obvious, obvious. So if you clean the place well, and you see something that is unusual, whilst you are cleaning, that is another form of inspection. So as you clean, you inspect. And when you identify anything, you work on it. If it has to be replaced, you replace it. If you have to remove it, you remove it, right? And then you have less equipment breakdown and production time, because when you will clean and inspect, if you see something, you become proactive. You'll fix the problem before it becomes a major problem. So you are always ahead of the problems and addressing them. So the production downtime is also reduced, because you don't have to wait too long because something has been ignored for too long, and finally it breaks down. And then all of a sudden the job has to come to a standstill. It doesn't happen under this system. Sorry. Now, the next point you noticed as a benefit under SHINE is the SHINE actually makes the place safer and more comfortable work environment, because there are few issues, safety issues and safety concern and hazards on the floor. It makes working in such an environment so comfortable, right? The workers also take a lot of pride in the clean workplace, and they become very well motivated when they see every worker walking into a workplace and seeing the whole place clean. It boosts their spirit, it boosts their preparedness. Then they become highly spirited when they see the places. I have had a very interesting experience when the workplace was so messed up and there was a disaster and the whole place was messed up. And the gentleman is coming home and he sees the mess and he says, gee, today we are in trouble. Now, the same people, after they put the place in order, when they enter the workplace, they just look left and right, and then you see smiles in their face. You ask me why, he said, boss, I'm too happy. Today is going to be a good day. That's just by the way. the workplace becomes cleaner. And when the workplace is cleaner, it really impacts on the quality of the product that comes out. Remember, Sechiri Honda had mentioned it. That kind of mindset of keeping the workplace clean support. I work in a company, and there was a leader who from the head office. When he came and visited our particular area, he first question asked, which place am I? Then he said, you are in this belt line. He said, I believe that their production efficiency and the other things and their safety will be the best. It was true. That place was the best spot line among the 4 of them. Everything was perfect, efficiency-wise, production-wise, safety-wise, they were number 1. So you could see that this statement is a very valid and correct statement. And those of you who are familiar will agree with me on this issue. Here you see certain benchmarks of how a house shine should look at. You see the floor area is clean. You don't see any items in the wrong place. Everything seems to be in order, apart from being clean and shiny, right? These are some few examples on the standards of shiny environment. Tools are neatly arranged in order. Everything is seen to be in its place, and it looks so beautiful from the outside. Well, the 4th item, it's another very important step. We are speaking about the first S1, which is the sorting. We've spoken about the S2, which is the setting order, and then we are talking about the shine. Now, in all these first 3 elements of the 5S system, definitely there should be something that should be the yardstick or the benchmark in order to be able to achieve those standards within the 3 elements. There should be a standard incorporated in this before you be able to achieve the objective of sorting, setting order, and then shine. This is the element of the 5S that drives the first 3 elements. It's a key, it's a foundation of the S1, S2, S3. And what is it? First, it defines systems and procedures in order to maintain and monitor the first 3 S, as I just said. It creates the best practices and ensure all work procedure conform consistently. Please take note, consistently to establish benchmarks, no deviation. Every deviation has to be addressed immediately. It doesn't give room for any deviation, but of course there will be deviation. And that is why the standard is there, so that you'll be able to know how to address it and where to go. Remember, beginning, they don't know what to do, but now you have a standard, you know where to go. It ensures that each work area is how it's going to work. Every work area has got its own peculiar nature. So the standard would define specific benchmarks for that area, unique. There are general cases, there are certain areas, certain things are quite different from other areas, but the standardization will do the work. It also describes the best way to perform a task, not only how to apply the task, but the best way to do it. Because you just mentioned about best practices. Always you look to how you can optimize the performance of the task. Then we have standardization can be accomplished. How do we accomplish standardization? Standardization can be accomplished by first determining the standard procedures and making them very visible. Every person within the system should be very conversant and clearly be able to see the standard. I'll mention to you that these people whom I was working with did not understand English. He cannot speak English, but yesterday he knows that when he finished working this particular tool, it has to go to this place because the picture was there. And the picture was telling him that if you put more than 3, you can see numbers, only he cannot speak it, but he knows. He put 1 there. Amazing. I will tell you a story here also. One of these contractor who doesn't speak English became the won the best award. How did he do it? That's how 5S is talking about visibility, pictures. you can use your thought processes to understand. And designate standard color coding, symbols, flowchart, checklists to help reinforce the uniform approach associated with the standard procedures. So everything that you have there in terms of symbols and coding should be very familiar to everybody. They should have a common understanding of what it means so that the meanings will not be different in different people. I show you the flowchart. The flowchart should be clear to everybody how the system is supposed to run, the steps it has to go through. Now it says you need to implement rules, which the first 3S are performed and maintained. So the 5S, the standardization actually defined the underlying rules, all the basic rules, all the benchmarks that help to be able to perform the first 3S, as I have mentioned earlier. It standardized the red tag procedures. I have mentioned that also. And then the red tag area, how are you going to store the items? It has to go through a system of standards. I've mentioned that earlier also. So standardized location, numbering, position of all items. These are all standardized with shapes, colors, everything that are understood and visible to everyone. There should be a standardized cleaning schedule and procedures. I have shown you a few of examples of that earlier. It is coming out of the standardization. You have defined a standard and that is it. So when you are doing about shining, there is a standard. So you could see that the standard becoming one common factor in all these three first elements. We will continue. The standardization also helps us to be able to establish the standard condition. I have just mentioned that in both the sorting, the setting order, and shine. It will make it easy through visual display to conform to all the standard. I mentioned about a gentleman who doesn't speak English and doesn't know anything, but yet he just conformed to the standard through the display, colors, and numbers. All right, that is how easy it is. And also help you to maintain and monitor this condition, because I have told you that every system will be right unless there is a follow-up, there is audit, there is tracking on regular basis, in some cases on daily basis, in order to ensure that everything is done in conformance and consistent with the systems. What are some of the benefits of standardization? In standardization, between you and me, our roles are quite defined. There is no ambiguity. You know what you're supposed to do. I know what I'm supposed to do. So there is no conflict of interest or overlapping or duplication of functions or work. It is not there because you know what to do, I know what to do. So we go and do our individual work based on what is defined in the standard. Individual responsibility and accountability are clearly defined. So if I come and I'm talking to you, I'm not talking to Mr. B, but I'm talking to Mr. A because I know what you are supposed to do. So it is very clear and straightforward to do with individual. So for instance, issue of performance is very easy to deal with people in such an environment because every activity that is done by someone has a name tag, has a time to be done, and he has a person who is responsible for that. So you could address people specific instead of being generalizing. And that operation is also done in a very consistent manner. It is easy to understand and follow. And then, of course, standardization help you to train new guys. I have a new employee. He came to the system and he was interviewed by 5S auditors, and he was the best guy in the team. Strangely enough, because he understood the system within a matter of just a couple of weeks training. And he was being awarded for great performance because he understood it very easily. The picture you see here, I mentioned to you about 1.7 and kilometer length of a pot line, and then by width is about 1 kilometer, a huge and enormous place. So how do you eat an elephant? It's a huge place. The guy said, how are you going to do it? I said, no, it can't be done. You see that this has been zoned out. The whole area has been zoned out with all kinds of responsibility assigned to and color coded. Every team has an area of responsibility, which in terms of the color code, you can define exactly where you are supposed to be working. And it is also spelled out what times these activities has to be done, so that when an auditor wants to follow up, it is very straight. He takes away along with him, and everything is well spelled out in here. On top here, you see this here. It's a standard for storing items on this rack you see down here. And this rack you see down here, everything has been defined and posted on the board here. So anybody can walk in there and can tell you at a glance that something is wrong, because a normal hotel, 2 storage rack with display of the standard. Now we come to one of the most favorite elements of the 5S. You see, we have spoken beautifully about the 5S, sorting, and you're talking about setting order, you talk about this, but there's one element me and you have to recognize. There is one element that is a common factor throughout all these elements. It is the human factor. It is the human being, the workers, and the people who make this system work the way it's supposed to work. So it means that the 5S issue about attitude and habits is now the issue we are going to talk about now. The question is that how do we keep this attitude, and how do we keep this attitude, and how do we maintain them in a very consistent way? So he said 5S sustain maintains the S1 to S4, which we have already discussed, through discipline, commitment, and knowledge empowerment. Knowledge empowerment means that getting people to understand the system and then committing themselves to do it the way it is understood. Also, it re-emphasizes on a new mindset, because we always need a kind of a positive new mindset, and that the standards in the workplace should always be re-emphasized. People should stick to the standards and the rules. And I came to sticking to the rules means that correct procedures become a habit. Everyone has to do things in consonance with the procedure. It has to be consistent with the procedure at all times. In fact, when you do this, you stick to the rules, it means that anything that is exception becomes very visible. So if you want to see any exception, something that requires to be seen and improved on, do the other things right. Stick to the rules and let's see what are the exceptions and then work on them to improve the situation. Sustain means there should be this element of self-discipline. That is why I'm saying that self-discipline is about the most critical of all the 5 elements. In every team, self-discipline is very critical. So the question some of you will be asking is that, how do we maintain self-discipline? Because you are talking about individual people. Yes, there is a way of doing that, several ways. We'll look at that. Adherence to standards. The team have committed themselves to do something and in a certain way. And therefore, there's a need for ensuring that they are adhering to the standards. Through what? Through other means that we shall talk about very soon. We should also develop and incorporate visual displays and controls. Yeah, like I told you about the contractor who doesn't speak English and yet became the best 5S employee for the week. It's because of the issue of displays, visual displays, and visual controls. It is very critical aspect. It's what we are referring to as the visual controls. People see the messages and see the instructions and see all the standards being displayed in pictures. Anything that is obvious, not supposed to be somewhere, can be noticed. Something is not in order, he can see that something is not order, he will put it back to order. having said this, these kind of things promote good habits. And how does it happen? It is said that to develop a new habit, that is a thing that I mentioned, that how do you maintain self-influence? Self-influence can be acquired through a repeated way of doing certain things. And he's saying that to develop a new habit, you must do the same activity repeatedly 21 times. It becomes the habit. That is a rule of the thumb, of course. And also to remember something. If you want to remember something, the rule of the thumb is that people must see it 7 times. So that explains why you put the displays there. He will see it every time, and you will see it more than 7 times, and becomes a picture in their minds. In their minds, in their subconscious minds, everything is there in their mind. If you ask him, what is wrong with this place? He doesn't even wait a second. He will answer you, because this is not the normal. It's so interesting. Yeah. Now, I had told you that there are several ways of making sure that discipline is maintained in a team. And one of them, the key, is audits, 5S audit. You see, when you can see here attached is a 5S audit form. The audit form addresses all the 5 elements of the 5S. Every element of the 5S and all the issues involved in every element is defined clearly here. Sorting, what are the elements of sorting that need to be looked at in the audit? It's specified in this. Now, I mentioned to you that people will do things right when they know it to be audited. When there is an effective follow-up, effective auditing, you get things done repeatedly, and then it becomes established norm and a way of doing things. And that is how the sustain is being maintained. Now you see a lot of things there. Here, I'm just showing a few of some of the things that we've been doing over the period. You see here, there is a board that is displaying all manner of things, including audit, inspection, audit, and then it is assigned to people and teams. So you could see that all accountability is there. How you are performing is made clear to you. Some of these results are on all manner of notice board, in the eating place, in the port line, on the working area. They have it all of there. The boards are all over. You can walk to any of them and assess your performance as a team, and you ask yourself, how much am I contributing to this? If your team is on top, you pride yourself. If your team is not up to the task, you ask yourself, what did I do wrongly that I need to correct in order to be able to achieve the same performance as my colleague at that team? So these things are all here. You see these visual displays are all in the eating place. As you eat, it is giving you the display of how the area should look like, and then it comes in, this video goes on and keep on changing. It will give the performance, it will give you pictures of all kinds of areas and tell you the standards, what it is supposed to look like. And as you do this continuously, it becomes it forms in the subconscious mind and become part of your life. And that is how you develop the habits. You see here, there is a score sheet here. And what score sheet, you have seen a standard here. That is where the cursor is. That standard is captured on just a simple Excel spreadsheet. And on this Excel spreadsheet, it is built in such that when an auditor is doing the audit, he enters in what he is observing directly on the area and entering it in, and automatically it gives you a score. After the end of the audit, it gives you a score and tells you how each team is performed, and it's published after a period on regular basis, on weekly basis, on monthly basis, and everybody strives to do his best. For instance, if you look here where the cursor is, you could see you have a team ABC, and you could see the trend is showing that the red and the yellow team, which is the A, and then the B, are trending in the right direction. Getting improvement is coming every other time or every other week. Yet you see the one with the green, it's trending downwards. It presupposes that there is an issue with that, and you need to find out what was the issue. The idea is to help them to be able to correct those aspects of the activity that is not helping in the overall 5S system. And then they correct them, and then they all get on board, right? So looking at it, it's 5S is like the people normally will get bored if you don't give them an opportunity to bring fresh ideas that will drive further improvement. And obviously, if you intend to get ideas coming, then you should try to build a mechanism into the system that will actually elicit the ideas. It will help them to bring the ideas and motivate the team. In certain jurisdictions, so many things are being done. And where I came from, there is something they call a suggestion scheme. And that suggestion scheme encourages everybody to come with certain ideas that will help to improve the system. And when you do that and your ideas are implemented and it helps improve the place, it is then quantified, and certain portion of your idea is given to you as a kind of a way of motivating you in cash form or in terms of other things. And it does a lot of help. It does fantastic, great things. What's happening. And people were making money, people were getting recognition, and people were becoming very motivated, and the ideas were overwhelming. So the system was always running, and nothing will happen to the system coming back when you have an environment like that. You always see improvement every other time. And this can be done when you have a very good system of measuring and periodically monitoring the whole system and giving feedback, of course, to people in order that they'll be correcting all their deficiencies. I have this very interesting slide here, and I love this slide so much. I think that you will join me to see whether we can figure it out. We have just talked about everything, but I'm trying to liken this whole concept. The concept of the 5X, the framework, the superstructure is being the central pillar. The central pillar in the whole of our superstructure is sustain, self-discipline. I love to use the word self-discipline because it brings the meaning out very well to me, and for that matter, to most of you. So, and in fact, the standardized, I told you, is built into all these three first S. But how do we sustain the standard? So when you look at I'm trying to liken to a GIS system. For those who are very familiar with the GIS systems, there is always supposed to be a driver, and there are supposed to be the driven components. So here you could see that the sustain is driving standardization. And the standardization, in fact, is driving the first three elements, the shine, the set, and this. So when sustain stop driving standardization, the whole system will come to a grounding stop. The same way, if you have a central pillar, that is for a superstructure, when that pillar collapses, the whole superstructure will come down, crumbling. And that is how 5S is all about. This gives in summary how the 5S works. So the issue of substance, the element called self-discipline, the element called sustain is very, very critical. And I've mentioned how we can keep it. I have also mentioned that 5S is all about visual management. If you look at a visual management, it comes in certain levels of hierarchy. If you have a visual display, you have a visual control, and all these things come into the workplace organization. If you look at the first three, information sharing, displays, visual displays, standards are also displayed on site and be common, known to everybody. You'll build the standards into the workplace by way of pictures and by way of all kinds of displays, and it goes level. When it goes to the higher levels, this becomes a little more sophisticated, requiring engineering and other things. But you could see that virtually you end up doing just the basics. So some of them are being able to see abnormal condition immediately. Sometimes they're very so simple, it gives you the focus. You see it very quickly, and with speed, you can see the problem. And communications are open and very visual. You don't need to understand certain language, like I mentioned about the contractor who cannot speak English, is able to see it and be able to understand. Basically, you see some examples like this. Of course, when you see this trash is here, and it's supposed to be like this, and you see it without it, it means, of course, it's not normal. It's as simple as that. Very simple, very straightforward, and quickly you know that there's a problem for you to correct. Similar thing happens here. You see this gauge is saying this is a normal, a standard. If you see it coming into the red zone, some problem is there. You need to go and find out what to do. There's no control here, but it's visual display. You see it, that there's a problem, and you need to go to address it. Here you see this arrangement here. As soon as something is gone wrong, missing folder, or the folder is not arranged in the right place, it falls out of order immediately in this tree. Out of order. All right. And so also is here. This is a display. The target is there and the actual is there. Of course, you see a deviation. You know there's a problem. You need to find out what is going on. And you have these visual controls that are coming here. You can see a traffic light is a visual control. These are just a few examples. Here you see the color codes are there and they're telling you when you see red, it means something is wrong. And you need to go and fix it. So there's no inbuilt control, but you need to be able to see it immediately and address the problem. Now we come to a very interesting part of the project. Now 5S, we have spoken about all the elements. Now, how do we put it in place to start with? Implementing a 5S as a project. Like I said, as a project. First of all, you need to go through several stages. The first stage, of course, is the preparatory stage. And the project stage, what does it entail? It entails that the people, the system you are going to introduce had to be made known to certain people. You need to do some buy-in. You need to let people understand and familiarize themselves with the principles, right? Because you want to elicit their commitment to it. They should have a very good understanding of it. So the first people you have to do that is the upper level management, because for all that you know, they are the ones who are going to provide you some resources to be able to do that. Sometimes they have to go for a contractor or they have to go for a consultant to come and help you to fix it. And that is money. So they need to be able to be convinced of and be buying into the system. So you need to do some way of training and get them to familiarize with all the benefits that comes with the concept. Then the second point is that the same upper level management, you need to get them their full support, including providing resources. Otherwise, the projects cannot be implemented, of course. You need to select a target area for implementation because it may be a big area and you need to go step by step. You cannot do it at the whole time. It will become too difficult to manage. So you need to micromanage it and go step by step. Sorry. Sorry, please. So you need to select or choose a project facilitator for each selected target area. I had mentioned to you that my background has generally been operations and technology, but I was chosen as a project facilitator, and that is the game changer. It changes my life completely because when I got into this project, I realized that you need to be very committed. And so you need a project facilitator who is well-versed. He understands the whole thing and he has a depth of understanding, analytical mind to be able to figure things out. So in selecting a project facilitator, certain consideration need to go into it. Commitment is number one. Discipline is number one. And this had to be done. Then you form a core implementation area team, because I mentioned to you that it has to go by area to area. So when you get to one area, you need to get a project facilitator, and in turn, you also, their business of the area team is to, first of all, manage the 5S implementation in that selected area. So the project facilitator becomes the leader of that team. Then you have to constitute a team within the area. You constitute a team with committed, the keyword, committed and willing area representative who are eager to champion the project. You need that committed people, because sometimes it becomes very challenging, particularly in initial stages. If you don't have people who are well committed, it doesn't work. You need them. Sometimes sacrifices have to be made to start with, okay? And then the representatives have to be conversant with the different jobs and functions and general layout of the area. That understanding should be there. They should have a depth of understanding of the general outlay of the place. The area manager for the place will need to actively participate. As a matter of fact, this is one of the very important part of it. The support of the leadership, the area manager, it's very important. And in my case, I had so much support that I could just say a word and everything I need was given by the area manager. He was so supportive, excellent, and the success of the whole project was because of the area manager. Because, like I told you, the whole 5S system is a win-win situation. Sometimes when you do the cost-benefit analysis, the bigger one goes to the area manager because the benefits are such that it makes his job very easy for him. And who doesn't want to have his area, the job easy? The team members, of course, have to be trained to have a good understanding of the project scope. And then communication of the concepts, the plans that you are going to develop have to be laid out to all through appropriate campaign slogans, flyers, posters. All these things should be made regularly, informed to people. Like I told you, visual displays, banners, notice board. Every time you have to lay out a plan for activity, it has to be communicated to people through various means. All right. You can look at this is a snapshot. So first of all, you will need to be able to assess the situation on the area. That is, this will be done by the area team. Okay, the core area team guys will need to go to the floor. That is why I said understanding of the floor area and the layout and the duties and the job responsibilities should be known to the team. And then, of course, you need to do training. People should be able to understand the concept and be able to relate it to the issues that they are seeing on the floor. Then you enter into implementation stage. In the implementation stage, you have to do the standardizing, sustaining, and then as you go, you try to extend the activities gradually to other areas, of course, in collaboration with the on-site consultancy. It is critical you have to have somebody with expertise to be able to provide you the guidance that you need to have a successful implementation. Then you enter into the 5S system in progress. That is, here you need to do the assessment. You are running the system now. How do you need to see the impact of the system? Is it effective enough? Is it working? That is, means you are now, the 5S is going on. Continuous improvement is required. And then you need to do the assessment. Is it having an impact? Where it is not having a positive impact, can we take a look at it again and get things done correctly? These things have to be done on a continuous basis in order to ensure continuous improvement and give you the results that you are looking for. Then you enter into the monitoring stage and result tracking. Of course, now you want to see whether it's giving you the results that you desire. You have to do a lot of audits. In fact, the frequency of audit has to be initially very high. Initially, the frequency should be very high because this is an issue of habit. And habit, I told you, doesn't change immediately. It takes a period of time. So the more you do the auditing, the more you give them the feedback, and they try to rectify all the audit efficiencies with a period of time, then they begin to getting used to doing the right things. Then the system will start getting some form of sustenance. It will start staying. And then once you do that, you need to apply some numerical measurements. Like I told you about the checklist. The checklist is built with the audit and then the score, because people should know how much they are performing. You need to communicate to them how much they are performing. Based on that, they will try to look at themselves and see what they can do better. Because in this case, you have some healthy rivalry, some healthy competition going on. And in some certain generation where I come from, it is also tied up to performance. So there's a performance management system. It becomes a key performance parameter, so that people will know that at the end of the day, they are going to be held accountable for good work. They will be rewarded if they do the right things, and they will not receive the rewards that they deserve if they don't do the right things. And of course, you will need people who want to do the best. And like I said, the best practices are awarded. There we had a very interesting system. The manager of the area will work with the team leader and certain representatives, and they walk around. And when they come across any best practice on the floor, immediately on the spot, the individual is awarded with voucher, with some little bit things, and then pictures are taken, posted on all the notice board, and then it is announced as the best 5S employee for the week. And believe me, it's amazing. Everybody wants to be on that poster. Everybody wants to be on a video display all across the plant. And it was so useful. So when you do that stage, you are trying to monitor the system and make sure that it is doing exactly what it is designed to do. So in effect, within this cycle, that is the 5S system progress and the monitoring, that is where continuous improvement continue to build up in order to be able to sustain the system. It's very critical. This stage is a very critical stage. So as the people become very used to doing the right things and the system start working very well, you can then reduce the number of audits and frequency of audits, right? Because if you go there today and tomorrow, the difference will be very little because you will not see much, because now people are buying into doing the right things. Okay. We'll look at it. So in a snapshot, we will look at the 5S system. We have mentioned that the first element is the sorting, which is in Japanese theory. And we said this involved the removal of all things, items, essential items that are not needed on the work floor are removed in order to free the workspace. We said set in order. We want to organize the place on what basis with a standard in order to make the place orderly and in a very economic manner, where people can work without effortlessly, without any hustle, right? And very easy to access things and get work done without any interruptions in the workflow. We talked about shine, that is a CSC. And we said the area is cleaned by removing all dirt and work debris, at the same time inspecting to make sure anything that is damaged, defective, and need replacement or repair is fixed before it degenerates into a bigger problem. Then being proactive, that's the sense. Then we talked about the CSC, the CRQ2, which is standardized. We have mentioned that it's that principle that overrides or runs these first 3S. And it's the one that maintains the standards and methods of work for the 3 stages Then we talked about a self-discipline, which I said I'm much more, the most critical of the 4 or 5 elements is this one here, to maintain adherence to the 5 principles and make it a culture and a way of life. In a snapshot, all what we have talked about is captured in here, its importance of fibers and that its benefits to the system. As you can see here, you will look at this, the benefits. Waste is reduced, downtime is reduced, defects are reduced, and then changeover time is also minimized. The delays are taken out of the system because things are orderly. There's no need to, and there is no unnecessary questions and ambiguity on the floor. Then you talk about improvement. Of course, safety is obvious. Customers are satisfied because things look very orderly and things are being done on time and everything is looking good. Then personal satisfaction, that individuals that operate within the system are satisfied and well motivated. Visual controls are improved, standardization is there, and the control, the process is very clear. The process is well maintained and well controlled. The benefit overall, corporate image, very, very important. It also improved. I would like to end this presentation by saying that, quoting Charles Darwin, he is a naturalist. He says something that excites me a lot, unquote. It is not the strongest of the species that survives, not the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change, unquote. On that note, I would like to thank you all for your time. It has been a privilege to have this moment with you. I thank you.